The Xylothean message glowed in the air above the conference table, its blue light casting eerie shadows across the faces of Earth's highest-ranking military and scientific leaders. Commander Olivia Daniels read it for the third time, each word burning into her mind like acid. The Galactic Federation Council regrets to inform the representatives of Sol 3, Earth, that your application for membership has been denied at this time. While we acknowledge your species' perseverance, you have not yet reached the necessary level of developmental maturity or cultural stability required for admission. We encourage you to reapply in 50 standard cycles when your civilization may have advanced sufficiently. Olivia's hand clenched into a fist. 50 standard cycles meant almost 80 Earth years. This marked the 17th rejection in 5 decades. Always the same patronizing tone, always the same vague reasons. They didn't even bother sending a representative this time, said Chief Engineer Alan Murphy. His normally cheerful face had turned deep red as he threw his tablet onto the table. Just an automated message with the same garbage excuses. What did we expect? Dr. Kelly Mason sighed, her fingers nervously adjusting her glasses. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had spent 30 years studying Xylothean culture. They've been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. To them, we're barely more evolved than the pet creatures they keep in their gardens. The room fell silent as Admiral William Scott entered. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with intensity. At 73, he had devoted his life to helping humanity reach the stars, only to watch the Xylotheians repeatedly block their path with polite, dismissive messages. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his deep voice filling the room, "I've just finished speaking with President White. We have decided that our approach to galactic diplomacy requires adjustment." Olivia straightened in her chair. In the 10 years she had worked under Admiral Scott, she had never heard that particular tone in his voice. "Sir?" she asked. The Admiral activated the room's holographic display. A 3-dimensional image of the solar system appeared, rotating slowly in the air. "For 2 centuries we've played by their rules," he said. "We've filled out their applications. We've submitted to their inspections. We've shared our art, our science, our philosophy, all to prove we're mature enough to join their precious Federation." He paused, looking at each person around the table. "And what have we received in return? Patronizing pats on the head, suggestions that maybe, in another human lifetime, we might be worthy of consideration. Meanwhile, they mine our Kuiper Belt without permission and use our system as a shortcut for their trade routes." Alan nodded vigorously. "They treat our space like a public park they can stroll through whenever they please." Admiral Scott's mouth turned up in what almost resembled a smile. "Precisely, Chief Murphy. And it's time we put up a 'keep off the grass' sign they can't ignore." The Admiral expanded the hologram, focusing on the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. With a gesture, he highlighted Ceres, the largest object in the belt and home to over 3 million human colonists. "Project Defiance," he said simply. Dr. Mason gasped softly. "Sir, that was only theoretical. The resource requirements alone would be immense, yes." The Admiral interrupted. "But not impossible, not anymore." He nodded to Olivia, who stood and took control of the display. She had been one of 5 people entrusted with the classified Project Defiance plans over the last year. Recent breakthroughs in gravity manipulation and dark matter harnessing have changed what's possible, she explained, bringing up complex schematics. Dr. Samantha Hill's team at Quantum Labs has proven we can shape gravitational fields with unprecedented precision. Alan studied the diagrams, his engineering mind quickly grasping the implications. "You want to move Ceres?" "Not just a little. Course adjustment, you want to completely reposition it and reshape it," Olivia added. "We're going to turn Ceres into a message the Xylotheians and every other species in the galaxy can see." Dr. Mason looked horrified. "But Ceres' colony, the people, are being evacuated as we speak," Admiral Scott said. "This operation has been in preliminary stages for months. The colonists know what their home will become. Many volunteered their services to help make it happen." The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Finally, General Frank Phillips of the Mars Colonial Defense Force spoke up. "Let me get this straight," he said slowly. "We're going to take a dwarf planet, move it, and reshape it into—" "What exactly?" Admiral Scott's almost smile returned. "A gesture, General. A human gesture that needs no translation across species or cultural boundaries." Understanding dawned on the faces around the table. Alan Murphy let out a surprised laugh. "We're giving the entire Xylothean Empire the finger? A planet-sized middle finger?" The Admiral nodded once. "Precisely." Dr. Mason shook her head. "This is madness. The diplomatic implications." "The diplomatic implications are exactly the point, Doctor," Olivia cut in. "For 200 years we've tried diplomacy their way. Where has it gotten us? Nowhere." Admiral Scott resumed control of the meeting. "The Xylotheians respect only two things, power and age. We can't match their age, but we can demonstrate power on a scale they can't ignore. This project will announce to the galaxy that humanity is done asking politely for a seat at the table." He expanded the schematics further, showing the proposed final position of Ceres, perfectly aligned to be visible from the Xylothean home system. When complete, this will be the largest artificial structure ever created by any known species. Even the Xylotheians have never attempted engineering on this scale. They'll be forced to recognize our capabilities. Slowly, nods of agreement spread around the table. Even Dr. Mason's opposition seemed to waver as she considered the possibilities. "Timeline?" General Phillips asked. 3 years from start to finish," Olivia answered. "Phase 1 begins next month with the completion of the evacuation and the installation of the first gravity engines." Admiral Scott closed the holographic display. "I won't pretend this isn't a gamble. The Xylotheans could react with anger. They could even react with force. But after centuries of being dismissed, humanity needs to make a statement. Sometimes respect must be taken when it isn't freely given." He looked around the room one last time. "President White has authorized this project at the highest level. You are now all part of Project Defiance. Every resource of Earth and our colonies is at your disposal. Let's show the galaxy what happens when humanity finally loses patience." As the meeting dispersed, Olivia stayed behind with the Admiral. When they were alone, she voiced the question that had been bothering her. "Sir, are we certain this is the right approach? It seems childish." Admiral Scott's face softened slightly. "Commander Daniels, in my lifetime I've watched humanity cure diseases the Xylotheans said were beyond our understanding. I've seen us develop faster than light travel when they claimed we were centuries away from it. I've witnessed human art and music spread across alien cultures despite the Federation's trade restrictions." He looked out the window at the stars above Earth. "And through it all, they've treated us like clever pets performing tricks. Sometimes, Commander, when reason fails, a simple, unmistakable gesture is the only message left to send." For the first time in years, Olivia felt a surge of fierce pride. The Xylotheans had ignored humanity's accomplishments for too long. Now they would create something impossible to ignore. Project Defiance had begun. 6 months after the initial meeting, Olivia Daniels stood in the observation dome of Ceres Station. Through the clear dome, she watched hundreds of ships moving in carefully planned patterns around the dwarf planet. Giant machines drilled into the surface. Robotic constructors laid down massive gravity engines along precisely calculated points. Far below, the last evacuation ships were loading the remaining colonists. Most had already been relocated to Mars or the moons of Jupiter. A few thousand engineers and scientists had stayed behind to oversee the first phase of Project Defiance. "Impressive, isn't it?" said a voice behind her. Olivia turned to see Dr. Samantha Hill, the quantum engineer whose breakthroughs had made the project possible. The scientist was shorter than Olivia had expected, with curly gray hair and bright eyes that missed nothing. "Dr. Hill," Olivia nodded respectfully, "your work is the foundation of everything we're doing here." Dr. Hill smiled. "Please call me Sam, and I'm just one part of this effort. Look at what we've accomplished in 6 months." She gestured to the activity outside. 3 million people evacuated, 50 gravity engines installed, mining operations repurposed for reconstruction, and the Xylotheans still have no idea. Olivia added. That's the beauty of it, Sam agreed. They're so convinced of our technological limitations that they're not looking for anything unusual. Their observation post near Jupiter reports everything, as normal mining operations. A signal chimed on Olivia's wrist device. The team is ready for us in the command center. They walked through the curved hallways of Ceres Station. Once a thriving hub of the asteroid belt, it now served as headquarters for Project Defiance. The halls were emptier than they should have been, with most civilian areas already shut down. In the command center, a team of Earth's brightest minds had gathered. Admiral Scott stood at the center, reviewing holographic projections with Chief Engineer Alan Murphy. Around them, specialists from a dozen fields worked at stations monitoring every aspect of the project. Commander Daniels, Dr. Hill, the Admiral greeted them. You're just in time for the Phase 1 completion report. Alan brought up a new set of projections. All 50 primary gravity engines are operational. We've secured the internal structure, with the new metamaterials, and the surface reshaping has begun on the southern hemisphere. Any issues with power distribution? Sam asked, examining the data. Nothing major, Alan replied. The fusion plants are performing better than expected. We've actually gained a 2-week advantage on our timeline. Admiral Scott nodded with satisfaction. And our cover story? A young woman stepped forward. Lisa Petrov, head of counterintelligence. Still holding, sir. The Xylothean observation post continues to log our activities as standard mining and colony maintenance. Our disinformation campaign suggests we're actually scaling down operations in the belt. Perfect, the Admiral said. What about our new communications network? The quantum entanglement system is fully operational, said Ryan Cooper, a communications specialist. We can now coordinate the entire project without using standard channels. The Xylotheians can monitor all they want. They won't hear a thing. Olivia studied the projections showing the next phases of the project. The scale was, breathtaking. They weren't just moving Ceres, they were completely transforming it. Dr. Hill, she asked, can you explain exactly how the final configuration will work? I understand the basic concept, but the details... Sam stepped to the main display and expanded the technical schematics. It's a beautiful bit of physics. Really? The gravity engines aren't just for moving Ceres, they're for reshaping it. We're using them to manipulate the planet's mass at the quantum level. She pointed to different sections of the display. We'll create a gravitational signature that will be visible across light years. It will literally bend the light of nearby stars into a configuration that, from the Xylothean home system, will appear as an unmistakable human hand with the middle finger extended. And they won't be able to dismiss it as a natural phenomenon? Olivia asked. Not a chance, Sam smiled. The mathematical precision will be unmistakable. It will be clearly artificial and pointed directly at them. No ambiguity, no way to ignore. Admiral Scott joined them. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. We start reconfiguring the internal mass distribution. This is where things get more complicated. Alan brought up another display. We've mapped every gram of Ceres. Now we start moving things around inside without breaking the whole planet apart. It's like performing surgery on a planet while it's in motion. The real challenge, Sam added, is maintaining colony functionality during the process. We still need the remaining team to live and work here for another 2 years. A tremor ran through the station, causing everyone to steady themselves against the nearest surface. Speaking of challenges, Lisa said, checking a nearby console. Gravity Engine 3 just came fully online. There will be more of that as we proceed. Admiral Scott addressed the room. I want daily status reports from all department heads. Dr. Hill, I need you to work with Chief Murphy on optimizing the engine configurations. Commander Daniels, you'll coordinate with Earth Defense Force to ensure our security measures remain intact. As the meeting dispersed, Olivia found herself alone with the Admiral. Sir, have you considered what happens after we succeed? She asked quietly. The Xylotheians have technology far beyond ours. What if they respond with force? Admiral Scott's expression remained calm. We've run thousands of simulations on possible responses. Yes, they could attack us. but it would violate their own most sacred laws about interfering with developing species. More likely, they'll be forced to engage with us as equals for the first time. And if they don't, the Admiral's eyes hardened. Then humanity will have shown we're willing to commit enormous resources to make a point. That alone will change how they see us. Later that night, Olivia stood again in the observation dome. The work continued nonstop, lights from construction ships creating constellations around Ceres. What they were attempting had never been done before, not by humans, not even by the ancient Xylotheians. Sam Hill joined her, offering a cup of coffee. Second thoughts? The scientist asked. Olivia accepted the coffee. Not second thoughts, just appreciating the magnitude of what we're doing. We're literally moving and reshaping a planet to send a rude gesture across the stars. Sam laughed softly. When you put it that way, it does sound a bit absurd. Is it, though? Olivia watched a team of construction drones positioning a massive component on the surface below. After centuries of being dismissed, maybe this is exactly what we need to do. The Xylotheians understand power and spectacle. Sam nodded. Their entire culture revolves around grand gestures. We're just speaking their language. With a distinctly human accent, Olivia added with a small smile. Precisely. Sam raised her coffee cup in a toast. To humanity's biggest statement yet. Olivia clinked her cup against Sam's. To Project Defiance. Outside, the dwarf planet continued its transformation. Deep within, gravity engines warped space itself according to human design. Phase 2 had begun. 1 year into Project Defiance, the Ceres operation had grown to a scale that would have been impossible to hide from ordinary observers. Fortunately, the Xylotheians were not ordinary observers. They were extraordinary in their arrogance. 9. The bridge of the Earth Defense Force ship Relentless. Olivia Daniels watched the main screen with satisfaction. The display showed a Xylothean observation vessel orbiting Jupiter, exactly where it had been for the past 50 years. Its sensors were pointed toward Earth, as usual, with only minimal attention paid to the asteroid belt. Still no change in their scanning patterns, reported Communications Officer Doug Peterson, a young man with keen eyes and a quick mind. Doug had been monitoring Xylothean communications for months. They're running the same basic sweeps they've been doing since before we started. And our disinformation campaign? Olivia asked. Working. Perfectly, Doug smiled. We're feeding them exactly what they expect to see. Routine mining operations, standard colony maintenance, nothing that would interest their mighty civilization. Olivia nodded. Any messages to or from their homeworld? Just the usual reports, nothing about us. Doug's expression turned serious. It's almost insulting how little attention they pay to us. That's about to change, Olivia replied. Keep monitoring. She left the bridge and headed to the shuttle bay. The Relentless had been stationed at the edge of the asteroid belt for 6 months, coordinating security for Project Defiance. Today, Olivia was due back on Ceres for a progress meeting. As her shuttle approached the dwarf planet, she could see how dramatically it had changed. The once round celestial body now had distinct protrusions forming at precise points. Construction ships swarmed around it like bees around a hive. Energy fields shimmered at key locations where gravity engines were warping space-time. Inside Ceres Station, the command center had evolved into a sophisticated operation hub. Screens covered the walls, showing real-time data from every part of the project. Admiral Scott stood at the center with Dr. Hill and Chief Murphy, studying a holographic model of Ceres. Commander Daniels, the Admiral greeted her. Just in time. Dr. Hill was about to explain our progress on the internal restructuring. Sam Hill manipulated the hologram, causing it to split open and reveal the inside of Ceres. We've successfully redistributed 30% of the internal mass, she explained. The outer shell is now just a facade. The real work is happening inside. Olivia studied the model. The interior of Ceres now contained an intricate network of gravity engines, power conduits, and reinforcement structures. It's like we're building a machine inside a planet. That's exactly what we're doing, Alan Murphy confirmed. A planet-sized machine that manipulates gravity itself. A new face joined them, Paul Rivera, head of the surface reconfiguration team. The finger structure is taking shape nicely, he reported. We've completed the base and first joint, starting on the second joint tomorrow. Admiral Scott nodded with satisfaction. And our timeline? On schedule, Sam answered. 2 more years, until full activation. We've had some power fluctuation issues, but nothing we can't handle. Olivia noticed tension in the scientist's voice. What aren't you telling us, Sam? Sam sighed. The gravity distortions are becoming more pronounced. As we progress, they'll be harder to disguise as natural phenomena. There's a growing risk the Xylotheians might notice something unusual if they actually bothered to look closely. Then we need to ensure they don't look closely, Admiral Scott stated firmly. Lisa, update on our counterintelligence efforts? Lisa Petrov stepped forward, bringing up a new display showing Xylotheian communication patterns. We've been feeding them increasingly manipulated data. Their observation post is seeing exactly what we want them to see. Normal asteroid belt. Activity with minor mining operations. And if they decide to send a ship to investigate, Olivia asked. We have contingency plans, Lisa assured her. A network of drones ready to project false sensor readings. Emergency shields that can mask our work temporarily. And if absolutely necessary, we can accelerate parts of the schedule to reach a point of no return before they can interfere. The meeting continued with each team reporting their progress. When it concluded, Olivia joined Sam for a tour of the newest additions to the project. They took a transport pod through tunnels carved deep into Ceres. The interior was a marvel of engineering. Vast chambers filled with machinery, tunnels reinforced, with advanced materials and crews working around the clock. This is Gravity Engine Control Center, Sam explained as they entered a large circular room. Engineers monitored banks of equipment while energy pulsed through transparent conduits in the walls. From here, we coordinate all 53 gravity engines. It's the heart of the entire operation. The center of the room featured a holographic display showing a real-time model of Ceres and the gravitational fields being generated around it. Colored lines represented the paths of distorted spacetime, forming patterns that extended far into space. It's beautiful, Olivia said softly. It is, Sam agreed. We're literally reshaping reality according to human design. No one has ever attempted anything like this. A technician approached with a tablet. Dr. Hill, we've detected a small anomaly in Engine 17's output. The variance is within acceptable limits, but I thought you should know. Sam reviewed the data. Increase. Power to compensatory field generators 4 and 6. That should stabilize it. As the technician hurried away, Olivia asked, how many more engines still need to be installed? 22, Sam replied. The most challenging ones. They'll create the final shape of the gesture and ensure it's visible from the Xylotheian home system. They continued their tour, eventually reaching a newly constructed observation platform on the surface. From here, they could see the transformed landscape of Ceres. What had once been a relatively smooth dwarf planet now had distinct protrusions, the beginning of an enormous hand forming from the planetary body. When it's complete, Sam said, it will be visible across 17 sectors of space. The gravitational lensing effect will magnify the image, making it clear even from the Xylotheian capital. And they still have no idea? Olivia asked. None, Sam smiled. Their latest report actually mentioned reducing their monitoring of this region because human activities continue to show no significant advancement. Olivia laughed. Their overconfidence is our greatest ally. That and human stubbornness, Sam added. 3 more million work hours, 15,000 more personnel, and we'll have our message ready to send across the stars. Back on the Relentless, Doug Peterson continued monitoring Xylotheian communications. A small alert flashed on his screen, a minor anomaly in the pattern. For a brief moment, one of the Xylotheian sensors had pointed directly at Ceres, then quickly returned to its normal sweep. Doug hesitated, then flagged the incident for review. It was probably nothing, just a random adjustment in their scanning pattern. Still, better to be safe. Project Defiance continued its steady progress. The finger rose day by day from the surface of Ceres, pointing toward the stars, and toward the species that had dismissed humanity for too long. 2 years and 8 months into Project Defiance, tension filled the air of Ceres Command Center. What had begun as humanity's greatest engineering feat was now approaching its moment of truth. The enormous middle finger structure was nearly complete, rising majestically from the surface of the dwarf planet. Admiral Scott stood before the gathered project leaders, his face showing the strain of nearly 3 years of non-stop work. "We're 3 weeks ahead of schedule," he announced. "All gravity engines are operational. The internal structure is stable. Surface reconfiguration is 97% complete." A cheer went up from the assembled team. Sam Hill smiled tiredly. The quantum engineer had barely slept in the past month, fine-tuning the gravity field configurations that would make their message visible across the stars. "The president will arrive tomorrow for the activation ceremony," Admiral Scott continued. "This will be the most significant moment in human history since we first left Earth's atmosphere. I want to thank each of you for your dedication." As the meeting dispersed, Olivia Daniels received an urgent message from the Relentless. She found a quiet corner and connected to Communications Officer Doug Peterson. "Commander, we have a situation." Doug's face appeared on her screen, visibly worried. "The Xylothian observation post has changed its scanning pattern. They're now running continuous high-resolution scans of the entire asteroid belt, with particular focus on Ceres." Olivia felt her stomach tighten. "When did this start?" 12 hours ago. At first I thought it might be a routine adjustment, but they've maintained the new pattern. They've also sent several encrypted transmissions to their homeworld. Have they dispatched any vessels to investigate?" Doug checked his data. "Not yet, but there's increased communication between their Jupiter post and their fleet stationed near Saturn." "Keep monitoring," Olivia ordered. "Alert me immediately if any ships change course toward us." She immediately took this information to Admiral Scott and the senior team. They gathered in the secure strategy room, away from the celebrations happening. Throughout the station, "Could they have discovered what we're doing?" Alan Murphy asked, his normally cheerful face now serious. Lisa Petrov reviewed the intelligence data. "Possibly. Our disinformation campaign is still active, but the gravitational distortions have grown significantly in the past month. Any serious analysis would show something unusual happening here." "What are our options?" Admiral Scott asked. "We could accelerate the timeline," Sam suggested. "The primary systems are ready. We'd lose some of the finer details in the gravitational image, but the message would still be clear." Alan shook his head. "Rushing the final calibrations could destabilize the entire structure. We need those 3 weeks." "What about our defensive capabilities?" Olivia asked. "Limited," Lisa admitted. "We have the SHIELD network and the EDF fleet, but if the Xylotheians send their main battle group, we couldn't stop them." Admiral Scott considered the situation. "We need more information before making a decision. Commander Daniels, return to the Relentless and coordinate with our intelligence network. I want to know exactly what the Xylotheians know and what they're planning." Olivia nodded and departed immediately for her ship. As her shuttle approached the Relentless, she saw that the EDF had increased its presence around Ceres. 6 battleships now orbited the dwarf planet, a show of force that would be impressive against any human opponent but might not deter the technologically superior Xylotheians. On the bridge of the Relentless, Doug was monitoring a flood of communications. "Their activity has increased in the past hour," he reported. "They're definitely interested in something in this region." "Have they mentioned Ceres specifically?" Olivia asked. "Not in any transmissions we've intercepted, but their scan patterns are centered on this area." For the next 12 hours, Olivia coordinated Earth's intelligence assets throughout the solar system. Stealth probes near the Xylothian observation post collected data. Human agents on trade stations listened for rumors. Quantum computers analyzed Xylothian communication patterns for clues. By the time President Laura White arrived at Ceres for the activation ceremony, they had their answer. "They know something unusual is happening, but they don't know what," Olivia reported to the assembled leadership. "They've detected the gravitational anomalies but haven't connected them to a deliberate message. They think we might be testing a new propulsion system or energy source. So they're curious, not hostile," Admiral Scott concluded. "For now," Lisa cautioned. but they've requested data from their long-range observation network. Once those results come in, they'll have a clearer picture. I estimate we have 5 to 7 days before they understand what we're doing. President White, a tall woman with keen intelligence and a reputation for bold decisions, had listened carefully. Then we proceed as planned, she declared. The activation happens tomorrow. The next day, Ceres Station was filled with dignitaries from Earth and every human colony. The observation dome had been expanded to accommodate hundreds of witnesses to humanity's greatest engineering achievement. President White stood before them, her voice strong and clear. For centuries, humanity has reached for the stars. We've built colonies across our solar system. We've developed technologies our ancestors would consider miraculous. And yet, in the eyes of the Galactic Federation, we remain children, unworthy of recognition. She gestured to the transformed dwarf planet outside the dome. Project Defiance represents more than a technological achievement. It is a statement that humanity will no longer accept being marginalized in galactic affairs. Today, we demonstrate that when diplomacy fails, human ingenuity finds another way. The President turned to Admiral Scott. Admiral, you may begin the activation sequence. Throughout Ceres, technicians monitored their stations as power flowed into the gravity engine network. Sam Hill supervised from the main control room, her hand steady as she initiated the final calibrations. All systems nominal, she reported. Gravitational field forming as designed. On view screens throughout the station, people watched as space itself began to distort around Ceres. Light from distant stars bent and shifted, forming patterns dictated by human mathematics and human defiance. Full power to all engines, Sam ordered. The dwarf planet trembled slightly as the gravity engines reached maximum output. Energy fields shimmered around the enormous middle finger structure that now extended proudly from the surface. Field stabilization complete, Alan Murphy announced. The gravitational lens is forming. In space, invisible to the human eye but clear to instruments, a massive pattern took shape. The gravitational distortion created by Ceres was spreading outward at the speed of light, carrying humanity's message to the stars. President White watched the technical displays with satisfaction. How long until it reaches the Xylothean home system? Approximately 17 hours, Sam answered. The gravitational waves travel at light speed. On the relentless, Doug Peterson suddenly straightened in his chair. Commander, multiple Xylothean vessels have changed course. They're heading toward Ceres at high speed. Olivia immediately relayed this to Ceres Station. Looks like they've figured out something big is happening. 6 Xylothean ships, including what appears to be a diplomatic vessel, estimated arrival time, 20 hours. Admiral Scott smiled for the first time in weeks. Perfect timing. They'll arrive just after our message does. President White nodded. Excellent. Prepare to receive them. It's time humanity had its first real conversation with the Xylotheians. Project Defiance had succeeded. Across 17 sectors of space, the stars themselves were being rearranged, by human will into a gesture universally understood. Humanity had finally lost patience and found its voice among the stars. The Xylothean diplomatic vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel, exactly 20 hours after Project Defiance's activation. It was larger than any human ship, its sleek silver hull reflecting the light of the distant sun. 5 smaller vessels flanked it in a formation that could be either protective or threatening, depending on the aliens' intentions. In the grand meeting hall of Ceres Station, humanity's leaders prepared to receive the first official Xylothean delegation in over 50 years. The room had been designed specifically for this moment, large enough to accommodate the tall alien visitors, yet arranged to put humans and Xylotheans at equal heights during discussions. President Laura White stood at the center, flanked by Admiral Scott and key members of Project Defiance. Olivia Daniels watched from a position near the wall, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. Despite the diplomatic nature of the meeting, security remained a priority. They've docked, announced Doug Peterson through the communication system. 6 Xylotheans are exiting their vessel. Their biosignatures match senior members of their diplomatic corps, including, his voice faltered briefly, High Counselor Xylotheian himself. A murmur ran through the room. Xylotheian was the effective leader of the Xylotheian High Council, a position similar to Earth's president, but with far more power and a term measured in centuries rather than years. It seems our message got their attention, Admiral Scott said quietly. The doors slid open and the Xylotheian delegation entered. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their slender bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted color with their movements. Their faces featured 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, giving them a wider field of vision than humans. High Counselor Xylotheian led the group, his scales shimmering with deep purple and gold, colors that human xenobiologists had identified as indicating high rank. He moved with the confidence of a being who had lived for over 500 years and rarely encountered any species he considered an equal. President White stepped forward. High Counselor Xylotheian, I am President Laura White of Earth and its colonies. Welcome to Ceres Station. The Xylotheian studied her for a long moment before speaking. His voice was surprisingly melodic, the translation system converting his complex language into English. Your species has managed to reshape a dwarf planet into a crude gesture visible across 17 sectors, he stated, his tone somewhere between irritation and reluctant respect. The energy requirements and engineering challenges of such a feat were significant. We had not anticipated such capabilities. President White maintained perfect composure. We found your repeated rejections quite motivating. Clearly, Xylotheian's upper eyes narrowed slightly, a sign of annoyance in Xylotheian body language. The Galactic Federation Council has reconvened to reassess Earth's application for membership. Admiral Scott stepped forward. And? It has been approved. Provisionally, Xylotheian added quickly, on the condition that you reorient your celestial statement. Sam Hill moved to stand beside the president. We designed it to maintain its configuration for approximately 50 years before orbital mechanics naturally disperse it, she explained, keeping her language deliberately technical. However, we could accelerate that process if given sufficient motivation. Xylotheian's scales shifted to a bluish tint. According to human research, this indicated thoughtfulness or calculation. Your species continues to surprise us, he admitted. First with your rapid technological advancement and now with this unusual approach to diplomacy. President White gestured toward the conference table. Perhaps we should discuss the details of our new relationship with the Federation. For the next 6 hours, humans and Xylotheians engaged in the most substantive negotiations in their shared history. Gone was the patronizing tone the aliens had used for centuries. Instead, they spoke as they would to equals, with respect if not warmth. Outside the meeting hall, Olivia found Sam watching the proceedings on a monitor. It worked, Olivia said, still sounding somewhat surprised. They're actually taking us seriously. Sam smiled. Sometimes the simplest messages are the most effective. Is a planet-sized middle finger really that simple? The engineering was complex, Sam admitted. But the message? Universal. Inside the hall, the negotiations were concluding. President White and High Counselor Xylotheian stood facing each other. Earth will have representation on the Federation Council within 1 standard cycle, Xylotheian confirmed. Your trade routes will receive protected status and your scientific exchanges will no longer be restricted to Category 3 technologies. And in return, President White nodded, we will begin the process of reconfiguring Ceres within 30 days, to be completed. Within 1 Earth year, there is one more matter, Xylotheian added. The Federation is curious about the technology you developed for this project. Your gravity manipulation techniques appear to be unique in our records. Admiral Scott exchanged glances with President White. This was expected. The Xylotheians wouldn't just be impressed. They'd want the technology for themselves. We would be pleased to discuss technological exchange as part of our new relationship, President White replied carefully. Once our membership is formalized. The meeting concluded with formal agreements being recorded by both sides. As the Xylotheian delegation prepared to depart, High Counselor Zixthar approached Sam Hill directly. "Your work," he said, his eyes focusing intently on her, "has accomplished what centuries of conventional diplomacy could not. It is unorthodox, but effective." Sam inclined her head. "Sometimes one needs to use universal language to be understood." Indeed. For the first time, something resembling amusement flickered across the alien's features. "The Federation will be watching your species with great interest." After the Xylotheians departed, celebrations erupted throughout Ceres Station and across human colonies. News of the diplomatic breakthrough spread quickly, along with images of the transformed dwarf planet and its unmistakable gesture. In a quiet observation room, Admiral Scott found Olivia and Sam sharing a bottle of champagne. "To Project Defiance," Olivia toasted, raising her glass. "To finally getting their attention," Sam added. Admiral Scott joined them, accepting a glass. "To humanity's place among the stars," he said, "though perhaps our approach lacked some diplomatic refinement." Sam laughed. "With respect, Admiral, refinement got us nowhere for 200 years. Sometimes you need to be bold." "Or crude," Olivia added with a smile. "Or both," the Admiral conceded, looking out the window at their handiwork. "History will remember this as the moment everything changed." 1 month later, as promised, the reconfiguration of Ceres began. The middle finger structure would be gradually reshaped into a more diplomatic form, but not too quickly. High Counselor Zixthar had privately admitted that the gesture had become something of a sensation throughout the Federation, with some species openly admiring humanity's audacity. On Earth, a small monument was erected outside the United Earth Government headquarters. It depicted a hand with its middle finger raised, a reminder that sometimes when diplomacy fails, human ingenuity and defiance can succeed. As Sam Hill had predicted, when completed, Project Defiance would be visible across 17 sectors for 50 years, a lingering reminder that humanity had finally lost patience, but in doing so, had found its voice among the stars. And in the centuries that followed, whenever a new species joined the Galactic Federation, the Xylotheians would tell them the story of the curious humans who had built a planet-sized middle finger and somehow made it work.